It's been quite a long road, getting all the way from episode 1 back in July of 2020 to this, episode 169 here in 2024. And Neil and I have had a lot of interesting discussions back and forth, and we've learnt an awful lot over that time. And there have been so many other benefits to doing this podcast. So, join myself and Neil for this emotional episode where we say a fond farewell.
Aliens Explored is a weekly podcast exploring famous and obscure cases of UFO sightings, alien abductions and other strange events from both a believing and a sceptical perspective, whilst keeping an open mind. I'm Stu Jackson, a professional actor and amateur ufologist with a particular interest in the crop circle phenomenon. I'll be debating that otherworldly visitations are real. The truth is out there.
And I'm Neil Kelly. I'm a professional actor as well and used to work for the military as an intelligence analyst. I'll be arguing from a more doubtful point of view. I mean, it's all a bit far-fetched, isn't it? Hello listeners, and welcome back to Aliens Explored, your weekly, or used to be your weekly look at the mysterious skies, underwater, smoke-filled back rooms, secret deals between politicians and the military and all that kind of thing. Yes, we're doing this for the last time. For the time being, anyway. My name is Neil Kelly, I'm one of your hosts.
And I'm Stu Jackson. I have been your other host. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we have kind of done this before, haven't we? Where we've said, oh, we need to take a break, and we've taken a break.
Yeah.
And we've said, but we'll be coming back, and we have come back. This time's a bit different.
So we're going down.
We're not ruling it out.
Going down for the third time.
Yeah, we're not ruling out coming back, but yeah, we've no plans or intention to at the moment. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Who knows? We might we might be stimulated by something into picking this up again and running with it. But I think,
money is always good.
Money would help. Yeah, and an indisputable extraterrestrial event that might. We might have something to say about that.
We've had plenty of those already, but you then dispute them.
Yes.
No, so I think worth explaining to our listeners why we've come to this. So you and I, Neil, we as our regular listeners will know full well, because we keep banging on about it, our Christmas time is a busy time of year. So we recorded lots of episodes in advance, and ready to be sort of released on time this year. In previous years, we've taken a break and done it that way, but we didn't want to do that this year. We wanted to. So we needed to take the break, but we recorded lots and lots of episodes in advance to free up our time to do that. And also a lot's been happening for us kind of outside of all that as well. Our careers have been evolving and changing over the last couple of years. And yeah, it's gotten to the point whereby it's just a bit too much, really, isn't it? To be
It's difficult to find time when we're both available. I'd put it that way. We have spare time, but not necessarily coinciding with each other.
We have spare time, but A, not very much of it, and B, it's important. I think it's important, without sounding too dramatic about this now, but I think it's important for everyone's sort of mental and spiritual health to have downtime, to have time off. And whilst it's great to do the thing you love, when it's hard work, which we put a lot of hard work into this because we love it. It doesn't count as time off.
No,
does it? So
it doesn't really. No.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry. That was my
back.
That was my doorbell.
Oh, didn't hear it.
Okay.
Okay. No worries. So yeah, looking back at June, or very end of June, 2020. So nearly 4 years ago now. Nearly 4 years ago was when we started. So we started, because, I mean, if our listeners don't know that we record these in advance by now,
They haven't been paying attention.
So we obviously record that. Our 31st of June 2020 was when we released our first 3 episodes. So we'd probably spent a good month before that. I'm trying to remember back then. Was it a month beforehand that we started talking about it when I first approached you?
I don't remember. I really don't.
It was that long ago, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember vaguely me saying to you, how do you fancy doing a podcast about UFOs? I know you know nothing about them. Or something along those lines.
I remember that. I remember that conversation. Yes, I don't remember how big the interval between that and recording and releasing.
Well, I know we did 3 episodes. I think our first recording was 3 episodes back to back, and that. I'm questioning that now. I don't think it was. I think maybe there was we recorded 1 episode a week. For the first 3 weeks of recording, and then released them as one batch lot. But yeah, it's really hard to remember now. It's like I say, that long ago. But the intention was that, as you rightly say, was in the middle of lockdown. As actors, we were twiddling our thumbs very much. We needed some creative outlet, definitely, and. I can't even remember how I came up with the idea in the first. I think I'd been watching UFO programs like, Ancient Aliens or something like that. I'd been watching far more of than I normally would have chance to.
I think I've been doing a lot of audio work. I know I did some readings. I did a murder mystery. That where they'd actually done it as a cartoon, and they just needed the voices to read the lines, to read the script. And I remember I was reading. I was doing Bible readings in an American accent. That, and because during lockdown, everyone round here seemed to decide that was the time to get their roof their loft extension done, or their extension built out the back. So daytime there was just this constant noise of builders and machine tools and what have you. So I would have to record late at night, and I'd be sat here in this little back room reading the Bible in an American accent.
I remember you talking about that. What a fantastic view you've got, though, out your window, look.
Isn't it? Yeah. Planet Earth. And
of the Earth, yeah.
As you can see, it is just a disc. It's actually flat, but I'm directly above it.
Yes. And look how small it is. You can even see individual street lights. Yeah. Yeah. So it must be really small.
It must be really small.
Yeah. So we started. So I know when we started, I remember talking partly because obviously we have worked together as actors, so I know we get on incredibly well because we're friends. We've been friends for a long time. So I knew you professionally and personally. I knew you had the background with the military. And I also, at the time, I think when I first thought of you for it, I had the suspicion that you didn't know anything whatsoever about UFOs.
No more than anyone else who hasn't taken a specific interest in it and read books about it.
I was going to say, probably most of our listeners do.
Yeah, probably.
Because of the nature of the topic. But
the fact that you're a listener means, you're in the top percentile there. Whatever.
But I knew I wanted somebody that would disagree with me if they disagree with me. Because I can be quite... I've discovered that I can be quite... not stubborn, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for here, but I can be quite difficult to argue with at times. I always think I'm right. No, that's a terrible way of putting it. I'm not that bad. But yeah, anyway. So someone
you will
defend
your ground to the last hostage.
I'll defend my ground. If you want to put it that way. But yeah, so someone who would stand toe to toe with me, but also, not knowing anything about it means that. So I had this in mind that talking about subjects that maybe listeners might not know anything about. Well, that's great because you'd be kind of bringing them along for the ride with your finding out about it. Yeah. So that was the idea. But back then, I look back then and I think, well, I've studied these crop circles for a long time and I've learnt a lot about UFOs. I knew nothing. I knew nothing about ufology compared to now, thanks to this podcast and doing this. I thought I knew a lot more than I did. And I, compared to a lay person,
I mean, isn't that how basically how science works? That as you learn more and more, when your confidence in your knowledge goes into that dip, doesn't it? That when you start out, you start learning stuff and you think you know a lot about something, and then as you progress, as you learn more, you realise how little you know, how much more there is to know. And then it's a long time before you actually start to have confidence in how much you do know. It's called it's related to something called the Dunning-Kruger effect, where people who they don't know enough about a subject to understand how little they know.
Yes.
And I remember,
that's it.
A related thing about that was an advisor in the White House in the early 2000s talking about George W. Bush, saying that the most difficult kind of person to work with is someone who doesn't understand that he doesn't understand.
Yes. And there's that ancient proverb, isn't there, about the beginning of wisdom is to know that you know nothing.
Yeah.
As well. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it was definitely for me a steep learning curve of learning how much I didn't know. But yeah, looking back, I know we talked about some subjects that are certainly to me really important subjects. Betty and Barney Hill, of course, was our first topic, but more so because that was the first publicly where people publicly came out and said we were abducted by aliens. That was a first. They probably weren't the first people to have been in that situation, but certainly first people to come out about it publicly. And bobblers are, I mean, I'm still very much on the fence of, I believe bobblers are 100%.
Okay.
I know you were very sceptical about it.
Yes, yeah.
Great. But yeah, very sceptical. Yeah. I'm going to ask you now that you've learned all the things you've learned coming through, do you think you would be as sceptical about bobblers are now if we were to discuss it from scratch?
Yeah, I think I would. I think
really?
I mean, as you say, as I've learned more and more about UFOs, I've realised how little we know about the cosmos and what's up there and these things that can appear in the sky and we don't know what they are. And it's almost like, I mean, that's what religion does, doesn't it? It fills in gaps in your understanding with us, with magic beings, with magical stuff, fairy tales. What was it described as? Covering up your ignorance with nonsense. But yeah, so yeah, you've seen something in the sky. You can't make out what it is. Therefore, it must be a visitor from another world or another dimension. And I think there is a tendency to do that. I mean, that's the world's religions are based on that, aren't they? Someone seeing something, not understanding what it, don't know. They don't know where the sun goes at night, so they invent a story about a god. You know, it starts with that level of ignorance and that level of wanting to fill in the gaps with some kind of certainty.
I mean, to be fair, believing in a god does not mean a person is ignorant. We're not saying that.
I won't go that far. No, I won't go that far.
No,
but
let's not do that.
Yeah, let's not do that and alienate half our listeners. But but that's how gods are made, isn't it? That there's something happens that you don't understand. That's
a lot of times. Yeah, like polyfiller.
Yeah,
in
fill in the gaps. Yeah,
just fills in the gaps. Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm going to. So maybe this is something that's developed on me over the time, but I don't necessarily believe in extraterrestrials. I think I used to. Looking back, I used to be absolutely convinced of it. Now I'm not so sure. I am 100% certain in myself that there is something going on. But given all the different options out there, interdimensional beings, time travel is what we don't touch on very often at all, but we occasionally do. It's not necessarily... And so those are kind of the big ones: is extraterrestrials, interdimensional, or time travelers. There's also the theory that these are terrestrial beings; they just live in parts of the planet that we haven't explored, like deep under the sea, or places like that. But they're as much Earthlings as we are. There are all these different theories, and I'm very open to the idea. It might be none of those things and something that we just haven't even conceived of.
Yeah, I mean, I'm perfectly prepared to accept, there are trillions of solar systems out in the universe, billions of stars in billions of galaxies. I'm perfectly prepared to accept that there could be life elsewhere out in the universe and possibly more technologically advanced than us. And might have developed the capability to visit each other. Can't rule that out. That's what we're aiming for, isn't it? To be able to travel deep into space. So it's perfectly feasible that someone else out there has done it.
Well, you talk about another race being more technologically advanced than us, and absolutely, I think it is almost impossible for us to conceive what a species technological level would be if they were 1,000 years more advanced than us.
No.
Because let's look at... Okay, we know I'm a big Star Trek fan. You look at warp drive in Star Trek. Do you know, Neil, we are, scientifically speaking and technologically speaking, on the brink of that right now.
Okay.
It's been designed on paper. There's a guy called Alcubierre who has designed, and scientifically speaking, on paper, there's no reason why it should not work. Where it folds space, or it sort of folds it in front and extends it behind, or something like that. That basically, rather than moving the craft through space, it moves space instead.
Okay.
It's an actual thing that works on paper. Now, we don't have we're not quite at the technological level where we can build it. But if we, where we are at the moment, are on the brink of something like that, where would we be in 1,000 years' time? And then you're talking about species on other planets that might be 1 million years more advanced than us.
Yeah.
So the idea of them being able to travel to a planet like this is not that
and
far-fetched, I would say.
And historically, visions of the future have been based on the technologies we're developing now. So, for instance, if you look at Fritz Lang's Metropolis, envisaging a city of the future, and there's all these zeppelins and biplanes flying around. You look at something like Thunderbirds, where the technology is very, very much rooted in the 1960s, but purported to be in the 2060s. And I remember the first episode, the Fire Flash episode, and there's a guy at the control tower at London Airport saying, "Sir, unidentified aircraft approaching at 14,000 miles an hour." And then there's Scott Tracy steering this thing with two little levers going, "Control tower to Thunderbird 1, it's 14,000 miles an hour. 7 times the speed of a high velocity bullet." Or you look at the artists' impressions that were made in the 19th century of what the future would look like. Lots of hot air balloons. So that's what we base it on. It's
absolutely
quite famous.
So the idea of I
was going to say another one. The famous one was Dick Tracy, who had a wristwatch radio, and he'd be in the cartoon and be saying, calling Dick Tracy. And people say, that's impossible. Where would you fit the valves? A radio in those days was a piece of furniture in the corner of your room. How do you get that on your wrist? And whoever wrote it said, well, I don't know, but he's just got one. A few years later, along came transistors, and it suddenly was possible.
Well, I don't quite think I can do video calling on my watch yet, but it isn't far away at all.
Yeah,
you're
well past Dick Tracy.
Phone calls on it.
Yeah, you're well past Dick Tracy in that respect.
Oh, very much so, very much so. So looking at that, the idea, like I say, of a, and we talk about being advanced, but only in human terms anyway. If a species went a completely different technological route, if they went more spiritual or psychic sort of level of development, it changes the whole thing. So the idea of us talking about, well, aliens, how would they traverse? Well, no, that's wrong thinking, because it doesn't allow for alien.
Yeah.
Which will be something completely beyond our sphere of understanding.
And
anyway.
that's also another thing I've heard scientists talking about. They're talking about the filter, whereby we can't become much more technologically advanced because we'll destroy ourselves with the technology we've got, either through Noam Chomsky is quoted as saying, well, we'll either die slowly through climate change or we'll die quickly in a nuclear war. Those are the two existential threats to humanity at the moment. And that is because all our technology, all the money for new technology is put towards developing weapons of war, having a military strategic tactical advantage. That, as you say, if a different species had evolved in a different way and didn't think in that kind of way, then yes, they could very well develop technology without risking destroying themselves with it before they got too far.
Yeah. What if it's a species that evolved on a planet that didn't have a food chain or a food hierarchy, that didn't have predators? Just totally and utterly different to us. We think in a predator way because we're evolved from predators.
But you look at something like Star Trek, even though that's set in a peaceful future, that there's everyone on Earth is living in peace. They've developed this amazing technology, but the Starship Enterprise is still very much a battleship in space, and it's capable of destroying the entire planet. So obviously people have had to. They're still developing that kind of technology, but obviously not using it in that way.
I mean, Star Trek's not a documentary, don't you?
Yeah, but I'm talking about. Well, it's these anomalies that I don't really watch it very often. Yeah, let's say it's set in a progressive socialist future. I'm thinking, well, yeah, Enterprise is a bit of a capitalist name for a starship.
It is indeed. I'm laughing now because, as big a trekker as I am, it never occurred to me before. Yes, it's definitely the... people talk about it being a socialist utopia, but that's only because they don't have money. And that's not their motivator in life. It's kind of not really anti-capitalist, it just isn't capitalist.
But they've gone into space fully locked and loaded and well armed, to fight.
Got to defend themselves.
Yeah, to defend themselves millions of miles from their home planet.
But that, I think, and if I'm right in thinking, I think we're on the same page here, is all of that is human thinking and applying human thinking to alien civilizations. We assume that they will think like we do. And that's a bold assumption to make right there. Bold assumption. Now I'm going to ask you, what would you say is your most memorable episode that we have done to date?
Well, I suppose the more recent they are, the more memorable they are. And I'm thinking there was a couple of episodes we've done in the last year where there was obviously an element of to be continued about them. One of them was the congressional hearings into UFOs with David Grush, and the other one that springs to mind were these Peruvian miniature aliens that were being examined. Now, have those Peruvian aliens been positively debunked? Yeah.
So at time of recording, a couple of days ago, there is a claim that they were intercepted being transported out of Mexico. Intercepted. And that it appears they're papier-mâché.
Okay.
Now...
Yeah.
There are so many... Now, this was reported by the Daily Mail, one of our favourite newspapers.
Well, I'm looking at a story. I can trump that. I'm looking at a story in the Daily Star.
Okay.
Lower brow, but actually probably has a better reputation than the Daily Mail.
Only just. Only just. Yeah, it's one of those stories. I mean, listeners, go and look it up. For me, it raises more questions than it answers. Why were these bodies being sneaked out of Mexico? It wouldn't take much for somebody to make mock-ups of these bodies and then try and sneak them out only for them to get intercepted. No, look, they're not real. I don't know. There's something.
But and the guy
curious about all of that. I mean,
he called himself a journalist. Is it pronounced Jamie or Jaime? Given it's Spanish, Maussan.
Jaime, yeah.
Jaime Maussan. Yeah, who he had form for that kind of thing, didn't he? That he made fraudulent claims before.
Well,
so he's a guy who's...
it has been claimed his claims were fraudulent.
Yeah.
It's never been proven. It's never been proven that he's made fraudulent claims, but it has been claimed.
Yeah, I mean, you can't prove... I mean, when he claims to have seen the Virgin of... whatever, the Blessed Virgin and all this... take that with a pinch of salt. But he had previously been associated with things that had been comprehensively debunked.
Which anybody who works in ufology, that will happen. Unless you're an out-and-out naysayer, yes, that is going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't impressed with this guy. He seemed very much I don't know how litigious he is, so I'm not going to use the word. But
No,
he's not
let's
someone to be trusted.
Because literally, you've got two people's words to accept. You've got him on one side. You've got other people providing just as little proof, just as little evidence, and making claims. And like, yeah, the media are dogpiling on the people who say, "Oh yeah, he's making it up." Oh well, that explains everything then. No, it doesn't.
It's not so much
proof that he's making it up.
It's asking awkward questions that he wasn't able to answer. Like, why isn't this being shared throughout the scientific community? Why are you keeping all this to yourself? And why wasn't the Peruvian ambassador invited to these these hearings about these artifacts that supposedly came from his country? And I mean, that was the thing that Mexico suddenly had these congressional hearings into UFOs right after the United States congressional hearings. There wasn't much time between those two events, was there? And it seemed the Mexican congressional hearings seemed to be based on these little bodies that he turned up with.
Well, I think those questions you just put forward are perfectly reasonable questions. I don't think a lack of answer is proof or evidence that he's making it up, though. That's where
it's suspicious.
The media are. I agree. I agree with that.
When he doesn't go through the normally accepted chains of scientific discovery.
I absolutely agree. I disagree that it is proof.
It's not proof.
And that's where the media is. No, but that's what the media is doing. They say, "Oh, well, it proves that he's making it." No, it doesn't. It just anyway. That's a whole.
It means there's an awful lot of questions that he can't answer. That if this were true, he would be able to answer these questions. Yeah, not proof that he's lying, but let's have some answers to those questions. And obviously, as it turned out, there weren't any.
So, would you like to hear mine?
Yes, I would.
I've actually got two standouts. One is, and it's kind of close to home for us, is the Rendlesham Forest incident. I think that's a story that bears a lot more research yet. There's it's an incredible story. An incredible story told by very credible witnesses. Well, weren't
we going to go on a jaunt to Rendlesham Forest? I mean, we still could.
We keep saying we're going to do it. But,
we still could.
Timings and plannings and things like that. But the other one for me is where we've been talking, and it's my knowledge and my awareness of the place has only increased purely by us doing this podcast, is Skinwalker Ranch. The more that place is delved into, the more fascinating and interesting it seems. And in fact, if any of our listeners sort of watch or listen to, not listen to it, it's a TV program. But yeah, if anybody watches like either The Curse of Skinwalker Ranch or The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, depending on what country you live in, I highly recommend it. It's a really there's a lot going on. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes of it, with Dr. Travis Taylor. Especially when he was working for the government and he didn't tell his colleagues. It's quite an interesting, but as a place, there is something very, very weird about the whole thing. I won't go into too much detail because
we already have.
We already have anyway.
You can thumb back and listen to what we said about it before.
Yeah, and but it's. But I also would like kind of. If we'd have been keeping going with this, like, what other things would have come out the woodwork? What other things would have presented themselves to us? And wow, that's incredible. And there was so much we were going to discuss as well.
We've still got the T-shirts. We've still got the microphones.
We've still got the T-shirts. There's still, still a possibility, but Oh gosh, so stuff just to give our listeners an idea of what we had planned to discuss. Stanton Friedman, which we were going to talk about last week, but it got taken over by the jellyfish thing. We were going to talk about the elongated skulls phenomenon, the Hat Men, which were the predecessors to the Men in Black, Robert Taylor from Scotland, who was actually assaulted by a UFO, Avi Loeb, Göbekli Tepe, which is a really interesting ancient site. We were going to talk about the different types of extraterrestrials that have been reported. You've got greys, that's the most common. There's also reptilians. There's the Nordics. There's all kinds of things. The 1977 WOW signal, as it's known, where it's alleged in 1977 we did receive a radio signal from space. Trevor James Constable and living UFOs, where Trevor Constable postulates that actually UFOs, or a lot of UAPs that we see, are in fact, and I think I mentioned them in the last episode, extremophiles, beings that live, like living beings that live in extreme conditions.
Conditions that to us would be extreme, like in a volcano
absolutely.
or the atmosphere, the stratosphere. Or...
Absolutely. I got down for us to talk about the Antikythera, which was in the recent terrible Indiana Jones movie. The Baltic Sea anomaly, the Dulce War, St. Lawrence Insurance Agency, who have an alien abduction insurance policy available if anybody wants to take that out. We're not sponsored by them.
I would like to know what the premiums are, though.
It's actually not that high. It's like $1 a year or something. Silly.
And actually, what would they, if you got abducted by an alien and taken away for a few hours and probed and whatever, what would you be claiming in compensation?
Oh, a lot. I think like $1 million, like level stuff. But you have to prove it, and that's the thing. They did have a claim. Somebody did put in a claim with them, and it came close, but it wasn't quite considered proof. So we were going to talk about all that. High Brazil potentially is a secret UFO base. High Brazil is a land that has been lost to time. Whether or not LSD allows us to see extraterrestrials vibrating at a different frequency, God knows what I'd get when I came up with that one. The Aerial Phenomena Research Organisation, the Dendera light bulb and Abydos helicopter. These are glyphs on ancient Egyptian tombs of what looks like a light bulb and a helicopter. I'm going to talk about this simulation hypothesis, basically the Matrix, and are we living in that? Excuse me. Broadhaven in Wales in 1977. There were a number of different encounters there. Myrna Hansen's UFO encounter in 1980. We were going to ask, could the moon be artificial? We were going to talk about Jacques Vallée. I can't even say it. The Frederick Valentic disappearance. We were going to ask the question, are octopi extraterrestrials, as some people theorise? There's so much we were going to talk about.
So you've whet our listeners' appetites for something for a meal that's never going to be served.
Well, here's the thing. I would strongly recommend every single one of our listeners, you've now got that list you can listen to over and over again. I know I rattled through it, but, write down all those things, research them yourself, make up your own minds. I heartily recommend that. Make a podcast about it. Send us a link so we can listen. That'd be great. Sorry I'm coughing so much. I've been trying to switch my microphone off when I cough, but I keep forgetting. So I apologise for that.
It'll all come out in the edit. Don't worry. We'll fix it in post. As
I'll try. But yeah, just get over bronchitis.
Directors like to say.
Yeah.
Okay, that was really weird. Watching you cough in silence. That was really weird.
That's what I'm supposed to have been doing. But yeah, that brings us neatly to the end of the episode.
The end of us.
Not the end of us. Well, if anybody, I'm going to say, if anybody would like to kind of take an interest in our acting careers, you don't do the social media thing, really, do you, Neil?
No, I don't.
So, can't really say, and follow Neil's career at, or anything like that.
You can look me up on Spotlight, but that's about it, really.
Okay. So, if you're an agent and you've got access to Spotlight, look up Neil Kelly. But for me, I'm on the social medias. I'm on Twitter at Stu Jackson Actor. I'm Stu Jackson on Facebook. I don't know. Yeah, find me, find us. Keep your eyes peeled, watching out for I don't know, historical drama. You do a lot of historical dramas, don't you, Neil?
I've done a few in my time, but right now I'm just Mr. Monopoly until something better comes along.
That's it. If you're in London, go visit Monopoly Life Size. Look for Neil. He'll be wearing a false moustache and a top hat.
There's nothing about me that isn't 100% authentic.
Fantastic. Yeah. So, an emotional moment, but
we're masking beneath hollow laughter. But
yeah. No, I think the laughter's been real. The tears have been real. It's all been. It's been a huge amount of fun, and I've got to say an absolute huge thank you to all our listeners, every single one of you. The way this podcast has taken off and grown has been phenomenal, and I've been really moved by it.
Me too.
You have as well.
I have, much appreciated.
Indeed, and especially a very special thank you to all of our Patreon patrons as well. The concept that people are willing to sort of help support us in that way, and you know the show that you want more has been absolutely it blown me away. Absolutely blown me away, the support we've got from people. Excuse me, and it's great because we've made friends around the world, like literal friends now. Not just like people we know, but we've made proper friends all around the world. Thanks to this podcast, it's been hell of a journey.
It certainly has. For 3.5 years.
3.5 years, my goodness. And I think in terms of ufology and the stuff that's coming out now, the journey is just beginning. So for the final time,
no, you're not going to say catch you next time, mate.
For listening. I'm not going to say catch you next time, but I am going to say keep watching the skies and take care for now.
Yeah, keep watching those skies, and it's been fun, and who knows what the future holds. Bye for now. Aliens Explored is a Fecal Films production in association with Juicy Falls. Music by Darren Mafucci and editing by Stu Jackson. Find us on Twitter or Facebook by searching Aliens Explored, or visit us on aliensexplored.com.